Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Sunday, June 16th, 2019, and today we're going to be looking at the latest Democratic primary polls and general election polling for the Democratic Party, and of course, Donald Trump versus the various Democrats that are currently, I guess you could say, the top Democrats on our list. So we have some polls, some interesting ones from Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina twice, one from CBS News and then one from Post and Courier. But overall, we should have some interesting data to go through. One clear trend that you can see based on your screen right now is that Biden leads in almost every single early voting state. Actually, he does lead in every single early voting state, including the state of New Hampshire, which I do think is pretty interesting considering New Hampshire is typically a progressive state, which currently has Sanders and Warren both in there. But again, that's in about like 9 months, so it should not be too important to us right now. Yes, it is one of the first races, but right now we should be focusing on the Democratic debates and what those mean for various Democratic candidates. So let's get started off with the new Fox News poll for the total national Democratic nomination poll. Biden leads by 19%. Now that's not too different from what we've seen in previous polls, just a little step up from the most recent ones that were taken around a couple days ago. Fox News puts Sanders at 13% and Warren at 9%, followed by Buttigieg, Harris, and then O'Rourke, Booker, Klobuchar, Yang, Gillibrand, Castro, and then so on and so forth. But Bernie Sanders being at 13% is not a good look for him. Biden being at 32% is pretty much the average as to where it is right now. But Sanders in the Fox News poll is definitely under average. So is Elizabeth Warren. Buttigieg is just slightly above. And Harris is definitely above. But overall, the general conclusion is that Biden is leading nationwide. I don't think that's any different than any other election poll that we've seen for the Democratic primary race. And of course, Biden with the most name recognition out of any of the candidates running, it does make sense that he would be leading. 32% is pretty much around a third of all of the Democratic voters, considering that there's over 20 candidates running. A third is not half bad for Joe Biden. Bernie Sanders at 13%. That is an extremely low number for someone who's been in this race and someone who's ran against Hillary Clinton back in 2016, came close to actually beating her nationwide, came within 1% of beating Hillary Clinton, and now is at 13% in the most recent poll and an average of 15.8%. There definitely is an argument that if Warren drops out, Sanders' numbers will go above Joe Biden. But again, we only know that if it actually does end up happening. If you look right now, Biden is at 32.2%. But if you add Sanders and Warren together, you get around, actually, you do get exactly 36% or 37% of the vote. And that really does, that's 36% of the vote. I'm 99% sure, or 37. But overall, it doesn't matter. It still means that they're going to surpass Joe Biden in that scenario. But that's not too likely to happen. Warren being in third place does not necessarily mean that she's going to drop out. That's not a bad position to be in with 20 other candidates. When Martin O'Malley was third place in 2016, that was a bad place to be in because there were only two top candidates, and being at 1 to 2% nationwide was not a good look for any candidate. But being third place amongst 20 others definitely puts you in a good place nationwide. And Warren pretty much has been holding out strong this entire campaign season. She didn't start out in third place, but I believe she started out in fourth. Yeah, she started out in fourth under Beto O'Rourke, and then slowly dipped a little bit, and then pretty much stayed not necessarily under the radar, but not a top name that was mentioned all the time, and then she boosted back up, and since then, Warren has been leading, and now she's at 11.2%, and that's a pretty good position for Elizabeth Warren. No other Democrats have reached that high. Harris did reach 12.3% at one point, but that was way back, and Warren has now gotten the highest Democratic candidate, I guess, number besides Sanders, Biden, and Harris. But again, 11.2% when the second place person is at 15.8% means that there is a possibility that Warren could overtake Sanders. Now, Biden is has completely drawn away from the rest of the pack at 32.2%. The rest of them are just down there in either low double digits or single digits even. And Warren definitely could overcome Bernie Sanders. It just all depends on scenarios and whether or not the progressive vote splits between the two. But as of right now, I think Warren is in a very, very good place. And Biden is also in a pretty good place, holding on to pretty much the same exact lead he's had for the past couple months, besides his little announcement bump that lasted for a couple of days. Moving on to Iowa, Biden leads by 8%. Now, this is a CBS News poll, so it's not done by Fox News, but it's a statewide poll from the state of Iowa. Keep in mind they have a caucus, which in 2016 favored Bernie Sanders, which was pretty interesting considering that the young vote was something that Sanders did very well with, and caucuses are where people stay with their voting caucus, and they don't exactly cast a ballot, but they just stay there, and that supposedly was more inclined for younger voters. But if we're looking at the Democratic caucus data from the state of Iowa, Biden has pretty much led in almost all of the polls. There was a tie with a Gravis poll. I believe Sanders might have led in one of them. Actually, no, he did not lead in any of them. The closest he got to winning was a tie, and then a recent CNN poll shows Biden leading by 8. Now this new CBS News poll confirms that, puts him ahead by 5.6% on average in Iowa. I think that's also pretty interesting considering Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. Hillary Clinton narrowly defeated Bernie Sanders here by just less than a percentage point. She's able to overcome him here, and it was pretty interesting considering that Sanders was not well known a year before, but now he's pretty well known. He should have high numbers in Iowa as he did in 2016, but we're just not seeing the same type of enthusiasm and same type of support from the state of Iowa itself, which could spell out bad news for Bernie Sanders in future upcoming states. Pete Buttigieg, however, is third place in the state of Iowa, not Warren, not Harris, but Pete Buttigieg. He's about fifth place nationwide, but being third place in the state of Iowa is not a bad thing either. If he places pretty much in the top 5, America will know his name overnight. He will be the headline. Other than maybe Biden or a Sanders victory, Buttigieg will definitely be the headline. He's within striking distance. Warren is within striking distance of Pete Buttigieg, but Sanders and Biden are pretty much away from the rest of the pack in terms of numbers. And then if we look over, we have another poll from the state of New Hampshire, which also holds some interesting data. Pretty much New Hampshire has been a progressive state. If you look at the first poll ever taken from UNH, Sanders leads by 7%. And then if you look over at some other of the polls, Sanders led by 11%, 12% in one poll. But now in the 3 most recent polls, Biden has led by 8, 18, and then 13. This most recent one was taken from May 31st to June 12th. I do think that it is pretty interesting showing Biden leading by 13%. Warren coming in a close third, very, very close to Bernie Sanders, which is, again, an argument that has been made multiple times. Warren is within striking distance of Bernie Sanders. It is a very real possibility Warren performs better than Bernie Sanders at the end of the day once we get to that Democratic convention. Things definitely can change. Maybe neither of them will be in the top 3 by the end of the campaign season, but there is a very real possibility Warren comes close to Bernie Sanders, especially with these many candidates running. It's hard to see why she wouldn't be able to overtake him, because right now Sanders has pretty much had a steady decline, whereas Warren has pretty much had a steady increase. But again, things can change. That's just how I'm viewing it as of right now. Now, South Carolina has 2 new polls, one from Post and Courier and one from CBS News, both of which show Biden leading by 20% or more on an average of 27.5%. Interestingly, Sanders has double digits according to the CBS News poll, but Biden absolutely takes away from the rest of the pack. The Post and Courier poll shows Warren in second place, Buttigieg in third, Harris and Sanders tied for fourth, but the CBS News poll shows Biden in first, Sanders in second, Warren in third, Harris in fourth, and Buttigieg in fifth. Pretty much still a very large leads for Joe Biden. That's as expected. But as of right now, that's substantial. I mean, Hillary Clinton won by more than this, but she also wasn't running against 20 other people. Joe Biden, I definitely think, would have a really, really good time if he's able to hold on to this margin running against that many people on Election Day. I do expect a number of these candidates to drop out after Iowa or New Hampshire, even though they've raised, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of dollars. Doesn't mean much when you have nowhere to go on in terms of the Democratic primary. But we also have some general election data, which is pretty interesting. Right now, if we look, these are all Fox News polls. They have general election data for Trump versus Biden versus Sanders, Warren, Harris, and Buttigieg, pretty much the top 5 candidates nationwide. The one candidate that leads by double digits is Joe Biden by 10%, then followed by Sanders at 9%, and Warren leads by 2%, and then Harris and Buttigieg both lead Donald Trump by 1%. I do think that it is pretty interesting that Sanders and Biden lead by the largest amounts, and then it drastically drops down to 2% and 1% leads for both of those Democratic candidates. But again, things can change, but it just shows that Sanders and Biden are probably the 2 most electable candidates for this general election. But also, Fox News did an approval poll, which shows Donald Trump at a disapproval rating of 8%, an approval rating of 45%, which is pretty much average to what it is right now. If you actually look, 44.2%, so just a little bit above average, which could also say that because the Democratic Party did so well in this poll, that it may actually show that they could be doing a little bit better nationwide. So thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below, and I will see you all tomorrow.